Alrighty, pitchers and catchers have reported, and reporters get to report tomorrow. And reporting with us right now on the Locked On Astros podcast is Brian McTaggart. We'll talk to him next on this special edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Alvarez hits a high drive center field. Beer leans back. This game is turned upside down. There's the runner. Fly ball down the right field line. Tucker comes on. Kyle Tucker. This time they finish the job.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we update you joins for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talkstros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett's not here. He's at the Biggio Town Hall at Minmay Park right now. So I've got a special guest host, Brian McTaggart. I don't know if they've ever seen your writing or anything, but where can they find you on Twitter?
At Brian McTaggart. Pretty easy.
Yeah, so he just arrived at spring training today in Florida. And so thank you for taking time to join us on the Locked On Astros podcast. And guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube and go and make us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Go and check out the Locked On Astros podcast. So I know that there's a lot of expectations, especially with the Astros just winning the World Series. And I know that spring training, every team thinks that they have a chance to win a World Series this year. There's some teams like the Pirates that probably don't really have that much of a chance. But before we get into all that, Brian, I want to know, since you had such a busy year, what do you do during off season? Do you just I know you still have to write a little bit during off season, but did you do anything exciting this off season?
Not really. I mean, it was a really short off season. As you know, they played all the way to November 5th. So by the time you cover the parade, and then they got rid of the GM. And so next thing you know, you're 10 days away from Thanksgiving. So, and then the winter meetings are right after that. And then after the winter meetings, I did take a couple of weeks off before Christmas and after Christmas. And then you're in January, man, you're like spring training's around the corner. So, I mean, I took a couple of quick trips here and there, but for the most part, just try to rest as much as you can and get ready for spring training because it comes quick, especially after the new year. Once that calendar hits January, things right around the corner, and it's going to smack me in the face tomorrow morning when I wake up at 7 a.m. and have to be out there. So it's time.
It was kind of a weird feeling seeing pitchers and catchers report for the Mets and seeing Justin Verlander in a different uniform. With Verlander gone and a couple other names gone, looking at the Astros rosters, are they good enough to repeat?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, a lot of things have to go right for you to repeat. I mean, the 2019 team, I think, is still the most complete team the Astros have ever had, and they didn't win the World Series. I mean, some things just went wrong right at the end. So you have to have the breaks. You have to be healthy. I think that's going to be a big key. If you look last year, they were extremely healthy when it came to their draft. I think, very fortunate for them if they can do that again. I mean, losing, we know what their starting five is going to be. They have 6 starters. However, they're going to divide up those innings. The best team in the American League, can they repeat again? I mean, a lot of players are going to regress injuries. Repeat, and they're the only team that can. They're the defending champions.
Right. So speaking of defending champions, I know a lot of people say, well, nobody's really repeated as world champions since the 99, 2000 Yankees. And it's really hard to do because it's hard to keep the same drive that you had that World Series season to just go through like the Astros did. These guys seem like a different team, a different group of fellas that can actually do it. And plus, they have Jose Abreu, who's probably going to be driven to win a World Series because he has not won a World Series. So do you think that the guys have the mentality, not the talent, but the mentality to push through the World Series hangover?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think if you look at the 2018 team coming off their World Series championship, I mean, that team had everything to repeat, and they had a great regular season. They went into the playoffs and swept Cleveland. They go to game 1 of the ALCS and they beat Boston on the road, and you're like, wow, they're gonna roll to the championship here. And then game 2 in Fenway, they some balls didn't roll their way that series. I mean, Jose Altuve was injured, McCullers with his arm, so he's pitching in relief. So you have to do. I mean, this is a tested, a tough team. I think they're going to be driven to try to repeat, which would solidify them as a dynasty. I think to be a dynasty, you have to win a couple in a row. 2-6 is pretty good, but if you win two in a row and 3 out of 7, then yeah, I think you can call yourself a dynasty. So they still have a lot of carrots to chase out there as they try to repeat.
I'm going to go ahead and throw out a tough question at you early. And it's the 5th inning. Christian Javier's out there throwing a no-hitter. What does Brian McTaggart do? He tweets it out there and says there's no hitter going. Do you get kind of tired with all your jinx in it, or is that just part of the fun? Or I know you don't believe in the jinx, but is that just part of being a reporter? You just like doing that?
Well, I mean, me as a reporter, I like to tell people what's going on. The reason I don't do it till the 5th inning is over is because they might want to tune in, or people might just Twitter and say, "Oh wow, Jose there's a no hitter through 6 in the belly," is to tell exactly what's going on. And the whole jinx it started in the dugout where the players aren't supposed to talk to, and somehow spilled over to the booth. They're supposed to talk about booth, and now all of a sudden reporters can't do that. So I don't know, but tell people what's happening. And if there's a no hitter after 5 innings, I'm going to pay a little bit more attention. I mean, the jinx stuff and the way the fans react is all kind of fun. It's kind of, they get that last out of the thing. My mentions are blowing up, but I've covered here, so I don't think I have jinx powers. If I did, I'd probably be a rich.
All right. So I know that you've been around the Houston Astros for a while. I think we're talking before the air. You've been covering the Astros since 2004. You've worked with a lot of GMs that have come and gone. So far, what's your initial impression of Dana?
Yeah, I like him so far. Very much a people person. He's very laid back, very comfortable. I've only been around him once. I've talked to him on the phone a couple of times. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to get to know him even more. I think it's interesting how the Astros went away from the Ivy League educated, numbers driven stat guy who maybe didn't have as much personality, and now they go into a guy who used to be a player who seems to be very comfortable around everybody and has more of a personality. And so as far as what we do, I think that's great. And look, a couple of weeks in, given me, not me, but just all the reporters, so much information. He's been so forthcoming in his press conferences that that's a breath of fresh air. I mean, we did not get that under Click. We certainly did not get that under Jeff Luhnow. So hopefully that continues as well, that he's pretty forthcoming. I mean, this is baseball. It should be fun. There's no reason to if you're trying to sign Christian Javier to a contract, there's no reason you can't tell people that and get people excited. And, maybe you don't get it done, but he was able to get it done. So, yeah, so far so good. I look forward to getting to know him more here in the next couple of weeks down here in Florida.
We'll talk more about extensions in a second, but real quick, Brian, how serious was the Brad Ausmus talk, do you think, for GM?
Yeah, it was real serious. I mean, he was one of the 2 finalists. I mean, I talked to Brad times in the process, and, he and Jeff Bagwell are really, really tight, and Brad's a very, very smart guy who I think it would have been a little bit of an out-of-the-box GM hire, but I think he could have done a good job here, and I think he wanted to come here and he wanted to get involved in the front office. So, he was a finalist for manager a couple of years ago. Now he was a finalist for GM. So, I think Jim Crane obviously likes him a lot. But his relationship with Bagwell, I think, is what got him this far down the road in the GM search. And, I think Bagwell right now has the ear of Jim Crane. Jim Crane relies on him a lot. So he helped sell Brad a little bit. Ultimately, didn't get the job. But, I think he was right in there till the end.
Okay, we'll talk some more about extensions in a second, but right now I do want to talk about FanDuel. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the midway point of the NBA season, and I believe that the Rockets are playing right now. They've traded away most of their talent, but they're looking for the future. But if you want to look for your future, go to FanDuel. It's a perfect time to download FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's a bonus bet back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe and secure and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. We got the All-Star game coming up. I'm sure they have the slam dunk contest. Who's going to win that? I'm sure how many points will LeBron James finish with? So you got all these things that you could do prop bets with. So plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for an even bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. I know Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman are people that the Astros fans want to be around for lifers, maybe the next Biggio and Bagwell. Do you see them both being lifetime Astros, or do you see one of them being more of a lifetime Astro?
I think they both have a shot. I mean, Altuve is a little older, so I think a better shot to be a lifetime Astro. I think he's about to turn, 33, maybe 34
32.
this season?
32.
32.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. A little bit further down the road than Bregman, whose birthday is on opening day. So, I'm not so sure how long Jose Altuve wants to play. I mean, I think he probably wants to play a couple more years. I'm not sure that he wants to play long enough to get 3,000 hits, but that's something that I'm sure the Astros would like to see him do in a Houston uniform that's, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. But Bregman is such a big part of this community as well, just like Altuve. And I think both of them, you want to stay. It'd be really weird seeing those two guys just become such a icon. You can probably say he's the greatest throw ever to play with Bagwell and Biggio, famers in the mix, but I think Altuve will get as well. But they got two more. Again, Dana Brown brought both of their names up as guys that they want to get done, and Bregman says that Scott Boras is talking to the Astros. I mean, it's not anything that's a front burner, but I certainly expect that maybe within the next year, one or two of those guys sign to it.
I know Hector Gomez brought up the whole Framber Valdez is likely to sign by opening day. Then Chandler Rome tweeted out the next day that he talked to Valdez's agent and said there's been no discussion yet about extension. And then, of course, we've heard Dana Brown bring up Kyle Tucker as somebody that they would like to extend. Do you see either one of those two players being extended by opening day? And if they don't, do you see an extension happening during the regular season?
Yeah, I think Tucker, I don't know. They've tried to extend him a couple of times. I know last year under Click, they had some talks. I know that Dana's come in as well. He doesn't seem real motivated. I think that's a little less doubt to happen. The fact that Framber's agent hasn't had any talks with the Astros, and we all know that spring is extension season. These extensions will reach out to his agent sooner than later, try to get an extension done. But it just seems like with both of those guys, especially Tucker, I don't think it's something that he wants to do at this point. Still has 3 years left. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I saw him in Florida, and he was like, I still got 3 ARB years left. It didn't seem like it was anything that he was really worried about at this point. So I'd be surprised if either one of those got done before the start of spring training.
Okay, so good answers. If you're looking at the Astros currently have 6 qualified starters. I know that there's probably some more minor leaguers we can talk about. I know that Dana Brown said that Dusty Baker said that if Hunter Brown shows that he's one of the 5 best starters, he can make the opening day roster in a rotation. But do you see the Astros going with a 6-man rotation past I think the first month they have a whole bunch of Thursdays off, or like a day off every week. But do you see them going with the 6-man rotation, or do you see them sticking with a 5-man rotation?
I think they'll go with this man when it makes sense on the count. They have to take care of Verlander a little off injury. And really, all these guys were picking up huge innings after a short season a year earlier. So I think all 6 of those starters are going to give them up when they give them up. I think Brown will, if he's not in the, be a long reliever, but also a guy who comes in and makes starts here and there. He'll get his innings. He'll get 130, 140 innings, if not more. And like I said earlier, it's going to come down. I mean, are all 5 of those guys that are ahead of him right now, the starters, are they going to stay healthy all year? They did last year, but 4 of those guys have thrown career high innings. So, and you expect them to play deep into October again. So they have to watch those guys, their workloads, and because they're heading into some pretty uncharted territory, and that's kind of the luxury starters. So I think we will see them space out those innings a little bit, and Hunter Brown will be a part of that.
I know that yesterday the new rules came out, and they have deemed that Luis Garcia's delivery is illegal, and that the Astros did reach out to him in December and say, hey, you're going to have to change your delivery because you can't do the rockabye baby anymore. I'm sure he's had enough time to tweak his delivery, but as something that he's probably done for a long time, do you see him be able to make that adjustment before the season?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question we'll have to try to talk to Luis in the next couple of days to get answered. I mean, I don't think it was a rule targeted Luis. They just tried to clean up, I guess, with the pitch timer, and when the pitch timer stops, they have rules now where you can only move 1 step forward or laterally, and then you have to throw the pitch. And so with his motion and taking a couple of steps, that just made what he did fall out of the realm now of what a legal pitch is. So he's going to have to figure it out. And I talked to Josh Miller about this a couple of days ago, and he says that he's already working on a different way to deliver the ball. he thinks he's a good enough athlete that he's going to be able to figure it out. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see. We'll see when he's out there on the backfields, maybe tomorrow or maybe the next day. Certainly the next couple of days, I think we'll see him throwing. And I'll try to get out there and take video and talk to him about it and see what his thoughts are. He's got to be frustrated, I think, because what he was doing worked so well for him, and now he's one of the handful of pitchers that are going to have to change. And Josh Miller called it a shame, and for him it is. But he's a good enough pitcher, I think, so far from what we've seen, that hopefully for the Astros he can get it ironed out and get a new delivery.
I think Clayton Kershaw was another one out of the stretch that has to change how he delivers the ball too. But definitely something that the Astros have to monitor. But I think that was probably that had to do with his timing and just to make sure he delivered the pitch well. But I'm sure he could do it. So looking at the catching competition, I know that Dusty Baker likes defense with the catchers. Diaz offers more offense. Lee offers more defense, but he could offer more offense. How do you see this playing out this spring training?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting they had the catching market to bring. Ultimately decided, it's going to be one of those two guys halfway through the spring and realized, well, we need to bring some of the rosters and other camps start to yeah, you're right. I mean, they do value defense, especially 90 feet. They value being cut runners. The distance base is going to be a little short, and maybe that gives Corey Lee the nod. I mean, he's got a cannon as a hitter. Yainer Diaz is probably a little bit ahead of him, a little more ready for the bigs. He can also play, which I think is a nod to him as well. I mean, there is a world where Michael Brantley's not helped. That's going to be an ongoing battle as they get through the season. I mean, they do their top prospects. They both bring different strengths to play. Diaz, I think there could be a opening day roster, but Corey Lee does hate, but he's going to have to settle in a little bit and make some of his breaking balls.
Okay, Brian, can you exit and come back in? Your connection's a little weak, but I was going to ask you next, like who's would be better for the 13th hitter, and you kind of just answered that. Like Diaz would probably be somebody who could play first base and maybe play some backup catcher in case you need it, or just be DH or something like that. But I think that you have other people like maybe Jake Myers, who could surprise some people in spring training. There's some other like JJ Madajevic, who's had some time with the big league club, but definitely something to look out for. But do you think Diaz has the upper hand at this moment?
I think so. I mean, I think they're both I think Diaz is going to come in to see that backup catcher. I mean, you also have Madriz, who that last bench spot, who could play into it. I mean, there's value with Dubon as well. David Hensley, I think, will be in the mix. Would not shock me at all if they brought in, somebody else some point during the spring once, some team so set. I mean, pretty much the star DH is going to look like, and you can pick one or two reserve spots. So you can spots. So there's 3 bench spots, but that's 4 or 5 who are going for those spots. So I don't think there's going to be any out of box guys and take look at Dubon, but I think D can make it as
something else I wanted to ask in a second is Yuli Gurriel. I know that there's 2 sides of the coin. You have some teams that want Yuli Gurriel back. You want some fans don't want Yuli Gurriel back. I know there's the sentiment as he's been with the Houston Astros for a while. He's been part of the World Series run. He's been somebody who's helped the Astros, but at the same time, you don't really have a role for him. I mean, you have Jose Abreu. You have somebody you don't really need him anymore, but he's still a free agent. Nobody seems to want him at this point. And so you would have to ask yourself, like, is it worth bringing him on? And so if we get him back on, if we get Brian McTaggart back, we'll ask him that. I want to ask him also if he has any opening day superstitions, and then if he has any favorite food on the road stadium. So he's in a hotel in Florida, so the Wi-Fi is not the best. And I also want to ask him about does he see fans backing off the cheating scandal now that the Astros won a World Series? Okay, so let's see if we got him back now. So you're back to 10. So let's try to do this again. Yuli Gurriel, do you see him catching on with any?
Yeah, I thought he'd be signed with him, but I think I know fans want him to come back, but I think there's just not a spot for him on this team anymore. I don't think he's a viable utility guy. Even if you do bring him in, I think there's probably Dusty to play him more than maybe feel comfortable playing him.
Right.
I'm kind of surprised he's still out there, frankly. So, but I just don't see him as a fit with the Astros at this point. I know that breaks the hearts of a lot of Astros fans because he was part of that core infield that was together all those years. And who knows? I mean, he's still out there, so you can't completely rule it out.
Well, you got Abreu there, so you don't really need him, like you said. I know with opening day coming up, and I know you're in the press box, you're not really a fan, but you're also grew up in Houston. Do you have any opening day superstitions or anything that you do every year?
Boy, superstitions, not really. Like to get there early on opening day because I do. There's a magic about opening day. Just to see the field before everyone gets there, and everyone's hanging on every pitch, and everyone gets super excited. The introductions. I know this year the Astros are going to have their banner drop on opening day, which is going to be a really cool thing. So not superstitions, but I'm like everyone where I feel the anticipation opening day. Your spring training weeks and towards the last couple of weeks, you're tired of watching for the real thing. One day hits, it does feel a little bit different. And you're
like when you go on the road, is there a favorite ballpark you like to have like food at? I know like most press boxes have food, like Minute Maid Park does, but is there a certain like food item you like to go? Like Julia Morales likes the crickets. I mean, I'm being sarcastic there, but in Seattle. But is there a favorite ballpark item you like?
Press box by far is Yankee Stadium. It's just like going to a restaurant. I mean, I would come there if I was not covering a game. It's that good. I mean, it's good quality and lots of choices. When the Astros went to Milwaukee, and they're going to Milwaukee again this year, they're out worse in the middle of the game. They had, of course, they're in Wisconsin, the press box, but it's up and down depending where you go. Some press box foods are really good. Astros visiting writers say they're the best. I eat it every day, so I don't see it. Some press box foods are really bad. Oakland is really bad. And, a couple of years ago, they started bringing in food trucks fans could use, and the media went down there as well. And so that's kind of been a saving grace. You can go down there now, something out of, but Finers, they do a pretty good job feeding the media. But Yankee Stadium far is the best.
All right.
Philadelphia was really good too, even in the playoffs of the World.
Well, of course, that's the big stage. They want to have the best food there. So yeah, they're going to try and impress you. So, looking at, I'm saved the last question. I don't think I asked you this during the show, but do you see the fans backing off the cheating scandal now that the Astros won a World Series without cheating?
I don't think that'll go away until everyone who's on that set done. So that's the ones after Altuve and Bregman specifically, colors as well. But there's another book coming out about it. So it doesn't seem new allegations surrounding the Dodgers as well. So it doesn't seem like it's something that's dying away. But I think eventually fans will find something else to do. I think that it a little bit. I think Altuve still took it pretty hard on the road last year. And look, the Astros keep doing, and I think that's some people who are up.
Okay. All right. Well, Brian, thank you for taking some time to join the Locked On Astros podcast. Enjoy your first day at spring training tomorrow, and you're welcome anytime back on the Locked On Astros podcast. And have some and baseball starting, so you have to be excited about that to see, even if it's just pitchers and catchers. So thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time. So, and guys, that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. My name's Eric Huysman. You too. Bye, Brian. So you can find us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to us and go ahead and tune in every day. And we are your only daily Astros podcast, and go straight.